I hope the sun is shining wherever you are and you're living in your greatest purpose. Thank you for your likes, comment, shares, and subscribes. Thank you to all who have booked personal readings, all the channel members, new subscribers. I am going to share this. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the live. I truly do hope the sun is shining wherever you are and you're living in your greatest purpose, your greatest purpose. Clearing the throat chakra as we speak. I feel like right now is truly the time to be, to really be living in your purpose. And I feel like for the most part, the overall energy is really that. Like folks are, if they weren't focused on their purpose, they're beginning to focus on their purpose. Like it really truly isn't a time, to play games. Okay. And I find that even the people that used to play games in a sense, like they may not have been taking their life seriously. They may not have been taking their life purpose seriously. Even folks, I feel like that were in that kind of energy now are choosing a different path or are choosing to do things a little bit differently. I almost feel like there's a sense of like urgency in the overall collective to make sure that, you are in alignment with your purpose, with your path. So, when I say I hope you are, living your greatest purpose, I also get a sense that many of you are choosing to live in your greatest purpose. Like it really isn't a time right now. It's not a time to play, okay, to play around, to mess around, to, be laxed about, walking your path. Okay, walking your path, walking your purpose, whatever it is that you're meant to do. Now, I do think that, there's still some folks that maybe, that may be laxed a little bit, okay? That, that haven't learned, okay? That haven't learned from their past, that haven't learned from the mistakes that they've made. In fact, instead of choosing to walk a different path, some folks may feel like, they're too far gone a certain path and they're choosing to dig deeper instead of trying to elevate themselves. I do feel that there are some folks out there that are kind of like that. And for the most part, I feel like that kind of energy is really coming with a sense of hopelessness. I do feel that there are some folks that may not have found their purpose. They're still not clear on it. They may still find that, the light's not on. Some folks may find that, regardless of what they've tried, what they've done, it's like the light is still not coming on. Some of those folks, and I'm not going to say all of them, some of those folks, are choosing to dig themselves deeper instead of elevating themselves. And just know that if that is the case, and that's not a wish, that's not a hope on my part, that they do that. Yet I do know that they're still, based on just what you see, right? Based on what you see, based on the results and how folks are moving, you clearly see that there are folks that, regardless of making the mistakes that they've made, choosing the path that they've done, right? They know that they've walked this path for quite some time. It has not served their greatest good. Yet, for whatever reason, it almost seems like, the light hasn't come on yet. They haven't found a way to choose a different path. And instead of, like trying harder, there are some folks that are going to dig themselves deeper down instead of elevating themselves, right? There are some folks that, because they haven't really, come to grips with what it is that they're supposed to be doing, they're choosing a different path. Now, it is truly a time to live in your greatest purpose, right? It really is that time to live in your greatest purpose. It's not time for games. It's not time to play, because I think based on what a lot of us see that's out there, you can clearly see like there's like an energy out there that's like forcing the overall collective to choose a certain side, right? It's either you're going to choose to elevate yourself, okay? And you choose to do this, with all the willpower that you have. And it truly is going to take all the willpower that you have, for you to like walk that path and live in your greatest purpose. Like when I'm saying it's not time for games, part of what I'm saying is that like it is that time to muster up every single like cell, on a cellular level, on all levels, to muster up all the willpower that you have and get your get your stuff together, right? And not to say that we're not going through stuff, and some of you may be experiencing this, like, and I can tell you from personal experience, like especially the month of May. The month of May, I'm not sure, if many of you have experienced this. It's like it was a lot, okay? And we're still in that month, finishing up that month, but it's really teaching us to muster up all the willpower necessary to focus on what we get to focus on, because I feel like more than ever, not just what I feel energetically, I also see this, that there seems to be some sort of like on an energetic level, like that Eight of Wands energy that you see, where it's like all these, it almost seems like all these arrows are flying at you or coming at you, kind of thing. Like on an energetic level, I truly feel like that's the overall energy that I've been seeing the last couple of weeks, in May, is that it's really taking a lot of willpower, not only to move forward in your goals in order for you to progress, right? It's also taking a lot of willpower to withstand and withhold from the things that are not serving your highest good. Okay. You may even find that there are some things that are trying to make people that are trying to make their way back into your energy. And that's that willpower that is going to truly take, for you to stay focused on your path, right? Because as much as you're trying to progress, right, know that there's always like an element trying to, remind you of some past, that you would rather not even see, right? A past that you would rather move forward from. Yet there is that aspect of it's almost like the past that's trying to glorify itself, and then there's a part of your psyche that's like, wait, what are you talking about? There was nothing to glorify about that past, so why are you even coming back into my aura, trying to make me go back to it, trying to make me think about it or anything like that? Yet I feel like that's the whole thing about the universe testing our willpower, is a lot of times those things are often reintroduced into our energetic fields, our aura, just to show us, okay? It's almost like, in a sense, the universe is like trying to show you that you made the right decision in moving away from a past that does not serve your highest good. Yet that test, okay, that test is meant to strengthen you. It's meant to like really show you how much you've grown. Even though some of us may not see it that way, it's meant to show us how much we've grown physically, mentally, spiritually. And if we really take an inventory, you'll see the growth, regardless of how small or, what increment that growth is. If we're willing to, like, be still, meditate, we're going to, and take inventory, we're going to see that growth. Okay. So for some of you out there that may not feel like you are seeing much growth, this is definitely for you. Okay. Regardless of how small it may seem, you are growing physically, mentally, and spiritually, because that's the law of the universe, right? Like, it's change. Everything is bound to change. You're changing. And as long as you've noticed, even if it just seems like an increment, um, I feel like any and all changes that are bringing you essentially towards your greatest purpose should be celebrated. And you should definitely take the time to celebrate the growth that you've made, because in that celebration is when then you get to, show your appreciation to the universe for doing whatever it did to bring you into alignment in order for you to then see that growth. So, number one, you are growing. Number two, take the time to celebrate that growth, because, again, like we said, gratitude is going to take you really, really far, right? Having that energy of gratitude is going to take you really far. So take the time to celebrate. I know a lot of us are very much focused on, that hustle and bustle, making sure that we got to go to, point A and point B and point C and D, E, F. Like, we have all these major points that we're trying to cover and we're trying to accomplish, whether it has to do with our personal goals, whether it has to do with the relationships that we have with other people, whether it has to do with financial goals. Like, we have so many goals that we're trying to accomplish. Many a times, because we don't take the time to celebrate the growth, it's like you really won't see it. Okay. And celebrating it can mean a lot of different things. Celebrating it could just mean, however it is that you celebrate. Okay. And I'm just going to give you like a simple example of, something that I personally do. Like, I pour libation as a means of celebrating, to thank my spirit guides, thank my ancestors, like bringing acknowledgement for the growth that I've experienced. Whether or not other people have seen that growth, that's up to them. Okay. And just know that not everyone will see or acknowledge your growth. And it doesn't mean that you haven't grown if they don't acknowledge that. Sometimes, like, we look for validation in the people that, it's like we give too much value to the people that don't even appreciate, us, our power, that don't even see the value in you, yet you place so much value in their opinions, in what they think of you. And it's those folks a lot of times that intentionally withhold the validation from you, because many of us don't even see that it's a means of manipulation. Like, the people that are consistently trying to manipulate you, take hold of you, basically turn you into their puppets, they will not acknowledge you. They will not validate your growth. They will not validate, your growth, whether it's physically, spiritually, what have you. So stop waiting for those folks to validate your growth, whether it's mentally, physically, and spiritually, because many of them, they're not meant to, number one, and they're not going to, number two, because you got to understand, like, them withholding that validation, for many of them, it's a means of manipulation, because I study psychology. Okay. So I know these things. And a lot of folks, it's in essence this idea of, if they don't give it to you, then you're going to go looking for it in them. So that's that whole mindset of these manipulating, a lot of folks will call them narcissists. I try not to use the big words, because it's like, a lot of folks are not even, familiar with that, but that is the mindset of a master manipulator, is to withhold validation from you, because by withholding validation from you, you're essentially going to go looking for it from them. So what they don't give you, you will go looking for in them, in essence, making them feel a lot more powerful. Okay, it's a very sick, twisted thing. And once you really understand the psychology of these supposedly, master manipulators, or at least they think they are, then you can move differently. Then you start validating yourself. You start validating yourself. You take your power back. Okay? You take your power back. You acknowledge your power. Okay? You validate your growth by celebrating you yourself and not waiting for someone to validate and celebrate you. Okay? Not waiting for someone to validate or celebrate you. Like, I've seen this dynamic in a lot of different types of relationships. I've seen it in familial relationships, relationships between parent and child. Okay? Whether it's a parent and child, like you have one person withholding validation, withholding value from the other person, so that you know so that they can feel in control, in essence, for the person to go looking for that validation. It happens in that dynamic. It happens in the dynamic of romantic relationships. It happens, believe it or not, it even happens in the dynamic of people who are supposed to be mentors. Now that one is deep. People who label themselves as mentors, and they have mentees who are essentially looking up to them, teaching them. Okay, you can think of this as like the teacher and the apprentice, whatever it is that you want to call it. Anyone who sees themselves in a position of power, or hold, have, or they see themselves as being more powerful, kind of like in a sick, twisted way, essentially use this tactic, the mentor mentee dynamic. It's some folks just feel like, in order for them to keep that mentee, right? For them to keep their position as the mentor, the one that is supposedly more powerful, they keep the mentee thinking that the mentee doesn't know anything, that essentially what the mentee needs to learn comes from this person. It's like there's no reciprocal relationship when there really should be, regardless of age difference, regardless of socioeconomic difference, regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of socioeconomic power that you have. There truly really isn't someone, there isn't one person that has more power than the other. Yet there are people who make it their business to work overtime, so that way your conception is that they are more powerful than you, or they have more than you, or they look better than you, or they know more. What I've truly come to understand is that people who are truly spiritually in tune, like, to me, are the most powerful person, acknowledges their lack of power, if that makes sense. They also acknowledge that there's always something that they don't know that somebody else knows, right? They acknowledge that they are not more powerful than, or they are more than. Like, that kind of person has a sense of humility that only really comes from being spiritually in tune and aware. And believe it or not, like, that sense of humility, it takes work, because you got to move ego out the way in order for you to do that. And so when we see people who've done the work and we don't understand where that comes from, we don't understand where that sense of humility comes from, a lot of time we mistake that humility for weakness. And it's because the people that mistake the humility for weakness oftentimes are the ones that are not in tune. They have not done the spiritual work. So it's challenging for them to understand what humility truly means. Humility is power. And many folks are not in tune with that. Humility is power, because it takes someone going within to acknowledge the essence truly of what humanity means. And it takes a sense of humility, being humble to do that. And it truly is powerful, because that is when human beings can truly live on a, on a balanced scale, if you will, that ma'at energy. That truly is when we can live on, a balanced scale, when we can have this energy of reciprocity, right? I see your power as you see mine. I see your light as you see mine. I see your strength as you see mine. Like, that truly is ma'at energy. Yet a lot of folks do not see that. And it's because they haven't done the work, right? And then when they see it, they mistake the humility for weakness. Now, there goes the issue. In Haitian Creole, we say "c'est lao pa foa." In Haitian Creole, that's what we say. "E lo pa foa, oui." That's your mistake right there. In seeing, a chosen as someone who is weaker than, as someone who cannot contribute in some way to humanity, because their contribution to humanity does not look like yours. Now, that truly is ignorance. Okay? That truly is ignorance. There's no more of a limited way of thinking than that. To see something that looks differently than you, right? Or to see someone doing things differently than you, and you immediately judge them because you don't understand what it is that they're doing. You don't understand their purpose. That truly is a limited mindset. Okay? And instead of having that kind of mindset, where you start to think that this person is less than, or, oh, what's wrong with them because they're not doing that? Why aren't you doing this? You should be doing that. Da 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 da. This and that. Like, why don't you go sit down somewhere under a tree and meditate before you start placing judgment on the chosen seed that will not, move like anybody else. This is why they're chosen. They're not meant to. Now imagine if everyone just kind of went with the okie doke and did what everybody else did. Okay? Like, if everyone did the same thing, like, really think about that. Like, would we really have a humanity that evolves, that becomes their greatest self, that seeks, spiritual elevation? Would we really have that? So those are some things to think about. All right. So definitely celebrate you. Celebrate you. Celebrate your accomplishments. Celebrate the difference that, whatever it is that they call you an anomaly, an outlier. You celebrate that, because there is a purpose, right? Some of the greatest inventors, were considered outliers. They were considered, anomalies. They were considered, out of their mind for doing the things that they did, because a lot of folks, they couldn't see the vision. A lot of folks will not see your vision. They will not see what you see. Now, does that mean that you got to wait for someone to validate you in order for you to continue moving towards your vision? Absolutely not. So kudos to y'all who continue, to do what you do, regardless of whether people call you weird, regardless of whether people, they call you all kinds of names, look, I'm pretty sure y'all have gotten all kinds of names in books that don't even exist yet. Yet you continue to push forward, to strive forward towards your goals. And that goal is tied to the elevation of not only yourself, it's tied to the elevation of the human collective. Okay? Those are the folks I'm talking about. All right? The folks that continue to push forward to elevate themselves in order to elevate the human collective. I see you. I acknowledge you. The divinity in me salutes the divinity in you. I say ashe. And, keep pushing forward. All right. Definitely keep pushing forward, y'all. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna take some comments. Uh, I was talking, y'all, and I didn't notice that there was a lot of folks that had comments. Let's see. Okay, so Brad Atkins, yes, yes. Ashe, I see you. Lovely wisdom, peace. Che, peace, welcome. Robert, Ashe. Okay, yes, you said. Okay. Okay, I think I read all the comments. So continue to elevate yourself, y'all. Um, definitely, continue to build the willpower to move forward because it's that time. It really is that time to push forward, you know, muster up that strength, muster up that willpower. So that way we can continue to elevate the human collective. Especially nowadays with whatever is going on. I'm seeing so many things, y'all, like so many things. You ever like just notice like you get these tidbits of facts, it's like your spiritual team is like showing you different pieces of information, right? And you haven't been able to like place the pieces of the puzzle together yet. Yet you see it's like there's like one dot here, one dot there. There's one dot, your spirit guides are showing you things like one by one by one by one. And it's like little by little, you're beginning to notice these patterns. Yet your spirit guides are like, okay, take your time. I'm gonna give you, I'm gonna give you the picture, or you're gonna see the picture. Yet, all the information doesn't come all at once. I truly feel like that happens for a reason. I truly feel like our spirit guides know exactly how much we can take at one time. I also feel like receiving the information in, small doses, if you will, it's meant to help you move in a certain way, because I also feel like the divine works, it's like a divine mathematical equation, right? Like divine mathematics, like things have to be given to you, at a certain dose, because if it was given to you in a large dose, then your reaction, it almost seems like your reaction would completely throw off the divine plan, whatever plan that the divine has for you. So, pay attention to those pieces of the puzzle, the dots coming together. I would also encourage you to write things down, write down your dreams, especially around, the full moon. As you know, the moon is definitely connected to a lot of revelations, things being revealed. So many a times those things are revealed to us to help us to connect the dots. All right. So writing them down, because it's challenging to remember all of that. It's a lot to try to remember, especially dealing with, the amount of information, that we're having to deal with on a daily basis, right? Like today, I was just thinking about the fact that, like, now when you use your phone, the phone asks you if you want to put in the effort and remember a code, or or if you want to use facial recognition, or if you want to use, a thumb if they want to use your thumbprint. I was like, wait a minute. And part of it is because there's so many different, it's like everything is operating in codes. Like it almost feels like there's something trying to, turn you into this robotic thing. It's very interesting, y'all. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Okay. There's a lot more that we can say about that, but I will in due time. So that is all for this message. It's what I was inspired to bring on today. So I hope this message is helpful to someone who is out there, who is doubting their power, someone who is doubting their spiritual walk. Know that, you have the power to motivate yourself, elevate yourself, and the validation is not going to come from anyone, or it shouldn't come from anyone but you. Okay, so I'm gonna sign off, and I will do another live, and I'll see you in the next live. And thank you so much for joining this live. All right, peace, love, and divine light.